Today is day 14, and we want to build and round up the conversation. We want to build on what we've done in the past 6 days about relationships, and then, just tie the knots around this. Um, Unfortunately, it's not something that is exhaustive. So there are still so many deep areas about relationship that we didn't touch. For instance, we didn't talk about marital relationship. We didn't talk about business partnership, which are very, very key. But what we just explore has to do with basic principles, right? Major skills. So I want to wrap it up by exposing you more to um, the important skills, the interpersonal skills that will enable both personal and professional growth as you pursue your goals this year, right? Your personal goals might be in the area of your um, marital relationship, it might be in the area of your family relationship, it might be even interpersonal relationship, maybe between your colleagues or internal relationship within yourself, right? Maybe you've been having struggles, inner struggles about yourself. You've done all those personality test assessments. Two I've given you actually. You've done that, and yet you have still not come to terms with who you are. So these skills will enable you to. I mean, some of the things I'll be sharing with you subsequently, you're going to really understand how it applies, in reality. So again, the upper week, that's the first week, we saw certain things that form the basic foundation of growth. Okay. Relationships happens to be one of the elements that you will make use of in foundation. I mean, I'm a builder, is my niche in the industry. Okay. If you are building a bungalow, okay, if you're building a non-suspended floor buildings, the kind of foundation you're going to lay will be different from when you're building an high rise. Okay. If you're building a multi-story building, and if you're building a suspended structure, maybe suspended in space, like now we're teleporting buildings to Mars, where you use 3D printers to print full building construction. That's the future forms of technology or method of construction using artificial intelligence, to carry out construction work in space. So there are different types of foundation you need to consider. So if you really want to build your life, you want to build your profession, you need to consider the kind of foundation you're laying. And this speaks to, number one, all the things we discussed about the G factor, that's the ground factor, preparing the ground, which start from you, your self-awareness. How much of yourself do you know? If you are not convinced about your knowledge about yourself, that means you have to have repetitive tests, repetitive assessment until you know who you are or who you are. I've put one book in your hand. I don't know how many of you have started reading the book. Why you act the way you do, by saying Larry. So all of these things will help you to gain full knowledge about yourself. So those are the grants. Then by the time you open up the grant, then you start putting the elements to have your foundation. In this case, when you're building, if you want to do power foundation, deep power foundation that goes deep to over 50 meters, you have your rebar cage, you have the protective membrane around the rebar cage, then you have, of course, the spacing of your links on the rebars, and then you insert it into the drilled, bored hole in the ground at specific locations based on the design before you now pour in the concrete. And you also want to be assured of the grade of concrete, right? In order for you, the integrity of the structure not to be compromised. So it's the same thing when we're talking about you having foundation for your growth. The kind of foundation you lay would determine the trajectory you are going to climb eventually. And as we're climbing, what will make you as a structure or whatever it is that you're building in your life not to collapse depend on the formidability of the element that you put down. And that's why relationship is very key. The strength of your relationship will determine how far you are going to grow, in essence. Okay, so you need to continually learn. So don't let this session just be the end of everything you're going to know about relationship. There's still more that you can know. There's still so much you can know about relationship. And the more you interact with human beings, the more you're going to understand and begin to explore new dimensions, right? Because human being can be highly illogical, can be highly irrational, especially when money is involved. Don't say I mentioned that to you. But trust me, what usually makes or bring in a lot of conflict in relationship has to do with money. Money. People have killed each other because of money. Okay? People have, I mean, terrible things had happened. There had been lack of trust. There had been, um, um, you know, um, compromises. Establishment of competition, which is antithetical to your purpose. All of these things will happen when people uh, mis misprioritize money above other things. Yeah, they say money answers all things, but there are definitely few things in life that money doesn't answer. And part of it is money cannot fix a broken relationship. Money cannot fix a damaged, shattered life, no matter how much you want to pay. I mean, you've seen many people decide to just walk away and rather choose to have their sanity than to continue to hold on to money, because by the time you go crazy, by the time you become defeated in your emotional intelligence, by the time your intelligence from 80 something percent drops down to 10, 15, 5, or even becomes zero, when you now enter into lunacy, money cannot rescue you. So sometimes you just want to make that compromise and walk away in the face of money rather than you choose your sanity. So these are some of the things that you're going to learn as you deal with people, because you see people in different shades, shape, and form. You see them in different shades, shape, and form across different seasons of life. So you have to be aware about this orientation. And that's why EQ is more important than just your IQ. Then there's also the place of you understanding your motivation, which I explained to you is more internal. Don't let your motivational source come from external. I mean, predominantly external. I mean, I'm not saying you should not be motivated by maybe having a role model or observing your environment, or pursuing to be in the right environment at the right time. All of these things, as some motivational speakers will tell you. I'm not saying they don't have a place or the role they play in helping you build a formidable foundation for your relationship and interaction with people. However, what I'm saying is let your predominant source of motivation come from internal, because by the time crisis or conflict happen, you will always need to resort to self. You will always need to resort to yourself. I will give you a very good example. As much as I love giving time to people, as long as I love engaging, talking to people, mentoring people, I cannot solve everybody's problem. I don't have more than 24 hours to deal with all the multifaceted tasks I engage in every day. And of course, my own fronts, my own personal relationships as well. So sometimes when people make demand on my time, unfortunately, I may not, it might be the time that I will not have opportunity to attend to them, and they might need a rescue at that time. So if they depend on me for their rescue, it's going to be unfortunate. Like someone who is on a hot seat, maybe is taking some questions on who wants to be a millionaire, and you think that you always have this friend that will always be available for you. Unfortunately, might be the day you really need to make that hit on $1 million, that the person will just not be available. So these are reasons why you can't just put your hope, you can't put your relationship success, you can't put the attainment of your goal and achievements in terms of the motivation drive on things that are external to you, albeit human or non-human, like money. Some people, their own motivation is money. As long as they are getting money, they are fine. They are okay. Their life is balanced. Their mind is okay. Unfortunately, such people will always get beaten once the money is not coming down. Like today in church, I had to cancel. a couple, and in the process of having conversation, I got to the root of what their problem is, and I discovered that it was at the point when the husband lost the job, right? And by the time money wasn't coming in, because when he was getting money, he was like everywhere, he was the best person anywhere he is and all of that. Now there's no more money because his major motivation in succeeding in life, in being who he thought and who people think, thought he was because he had money. Now there's no money. So he's now the most wretched person, useless, defeated. So you just need to be very careful about this, because don't lay your foundation on all these ephemerals. Don't lay your foundation on things that will naturally rot or that can be affected by time. Rather, lay your foundation on things that time cannot affect, which you are number one, right? And of course, you have to also put your faith here. Okay. Make sure you have a formidable foundation in your faith. Always put your faith forward. Sometimes, by the time you go through some crisis in your relationship, your faith is going to be the major element that will restore back your confidence in moving forward, right? So you need to be careful. And like we talked about, some of these things in conflict resolution, conflict is nature to us. So don't think that there won't be conflict. There will always be conflict. And when you know this, then you don't want to. I remember when I was preparing to get married many years ago, over a decade ago, our marriage counselor, I thought, with the way he intensively took us through the journey for over 2 years, and then we eventually got married, I was thinking that, oh, this man is going to walk all the way through with us in life as long as he's living. But guess what? It was even the first video that told us that. So see, this is the point at which I can follow you up to. From this moment onward, both of you are your own. And that has been the case. Like in over a year now, I've not even spoken with him because I really don't see the need to. And sometimes I just take on my evolution like, oh, I need to pay this man a visit and the family and all of that. So that is how it is. If I got into a relationship, my marital relationship, simply because I feel I can always boggle this man and his family and his wife, or always run into them, I'm definitely going to always have a problem. Anytime I run into crisis or conflicts and all of that, I would think that he is the one that will pull the rescue. So your inner motivation is more important, and you need to grow it continuously. Begin to establish your confidence, self-confidence level. You need to continually believe in yourself. And these are part of the, things that your self-awareness is going to create. So please, that first step, that first assignment is very, very important. Understand all the dimensions of your life and be aware about how you're supposed to function spiritually, emotionally, in your social life, political life, all dimensions of your life, your academic life. How are you supposed to function in those dimensions, and then gain confidence in them, so that even in your academic life, if you fail, you will not be defined by failure and say, oh, you're a failure. Whatever anybody says, begin to get deep into your head, and that pulls you down. So it's very, very important. Then, if you are not looking for external, right, the external at best should be taken as a support for you. Okay. And that's why in advanced country, I'm sure that Dr. Folashade can attest to this. In advanced community, in advanced countries, you see a lot of establishments of support groups. In fact, in psychology, in those places, they will always refer you to support groups. By the time they've given you clinical tests and clinical therapies, psychological assessment, and all of that, the next thing they will do to keep you in observation, they'll put you in support groups, right? So the best you can do with external motivation is for you to put them in the category of support. And you know what support means. Support is not something that you assess every day, every moment, right? It is when it is necessary. I'm using those words carefully. When it is necessary. That's why I told you that I don't abuse access. Okay. So your support, you're going to establish access with your support. And it is only when it is necessary. It's like someone having a bank account and you have invested funds or deposited funds in the bank account. You don't keep going to the bank every day like as if you are running a daily withdrawal operation and all of that, right? The reason why you're having savings in there is simply because when it is necessary for you to make withdrawals, then you go there. Whichever money you need, you will not put in the bank. What you use to run on a daily basis, you don't put in the bank, right? You want to keep maybe in your purse, or you want to put on a token that you can always make direct withdrawal from, or now with technology, you want to tokenize it, you know. And so this is the way you arrange your life in order for you to be able to have a direct inclination on how the pattern of your growth is going to be defined. Just a recap: what are the type of relationships that you find in the dimensions of your life? Of course, you have within a close knit, you have your family and friends. You know, naturally, you grow in this space, you grow in this community, right? You identify who your families are. And some, I mean, like myself, you work best with your nuclear family, not necessarily your extended family. But for some people, they work best with both their nuclear and the extended family. There are some that the extended family tree itself is so big that they need to develop capacity and an enlarged heart, open heart, for them to be able to embrace everybody, right? So all of these things has a way in our playing in and determining the way people grow, right? If you are dealing with more people within your family system, you need to know either in your father's side, maternal side, or paternal side, right? And how everyone connects. And if God help you, it's so simplified like mine that it's just within your nuclear system. I mean, all good, right? So, but you need to determine that and then create the necessary rapport. There are some people, in spite of the fact that they're family, it's just like what the Bible says that there are some friends that are closer even than a brother. You don't give them that undue access. You don't put them in your rapport simply because you bear the same name, or because if they don't deserve the closeness, if they don't deserve you putting them in your rapports, when you do, it's the reason why you have to continually deal with conflict. And there are some battles in life you don't want to fight, right? Because such conflict will always degenerate into battles and warfare. And some people's life has even been lost as a result. So you want to be careful. And this also speaks to how you utilize your EQ, right? There's some people, I mean, family member, yeah, I know them while growing up, but I can't just keep them within my rapport because they will do more harm to my purpose than good. So I don't owe them any apology and I don't have any obligation, right? So this is how to live life at large and for you to be able to make sense. And there are some friends or there are some people you meet along your journey, either in your spiritual journey or in your academic journey or in your business journey, right? There are some people you meet that you have to now draw closer in your reports that now becomes like a family to you. I have one of them like that. We met while I served many years ago. And ever since we have been together, we grew from just being an acquaintance, working together and all of that. And now we're now more like business partners and all. So this is how you can navigate through your relationships, right? Then you also have the relationship about mentor coaches, right? Or sometimes you call them guidance, so to speak. People that gives you leeways, you know, that gives you some kind of leverages, right? Some mistakes that naturally you would make. They've been able to navigate through some of these things, and you can actually learn from them. Like we talk about climbing ladders through the shoulders of other people. So it helps because some mistakes some people ahead of you have made, you don't necessarily have to make it. And they say experience is the best teachers. Sometimes very, very true, right? But not an absolute truth. Because I tell people I don't need to experience certain things for me to learn, right? I don't need to experience certain things, and I don't pray to experience certain things for me to learn. Why must I burn my hand before I learn that fire is always very hot at different degrees, right? So you have people who have traversed and navigated through certain journey and certain stages and phases, junctions of life, whom you can, you know, come in close rapport with for you to be able to get to do your own journey better. So those kind of people, you can also create some kind of niche and rapport, of which this is one. You glean from their wisdom. You also have this sense of accountability by which you can navigate through your journey. And then you have your peers, you have your colleagues, and you have your selected communities. I use this carefully. Selected communities. You don't belong to all communities, even though we live communally in nature. We are social animals, So we thrive, we grow in communities. However, you have to select the kind of community you belong to, and this is strictly in alignment with your purpose. Like you have set goals for this year now, there are certain communities you need to necessarily associate with that will facilitate the process by which you are going to attain your goals. In fact, there are some of these communities that is from within those communities you have to build relationship and make connections when you are selecting your team. Remember, we discussed about the process of team building, right? So when you find easy connects in building teams and selecting team members, when you select and choose the right community that align with your purpose, not just any kind of community, because you allow undue influence from friends, or families to connect you or place you in the wrong. So you need to understand all these things. And one of the sound warning that I'm also going to give you, like I've always mentioned and repeatedly said to you, is the fact that life must not be lived in competition. As you have your peers, your colleagues around you, don't give in to competition with your peers or your colleagues. Everybody have their race or races that they're pursuing. Your goals are different. Your purpose course is definitely different. So never compete, never make comparison with anyone. At best, you can take counsel for one another, right? You can take counsel from one another. Like if someone had done something, for instance, if you want to do a certification in your academic pursuits and a friend has actually done it, you can actually learn from the person, how the person went through and all of that, right? Not necessarily that you'll be pursuing, okay, because the person scored 100%, I too must score 100% and turn the person's goal setting to your own goal. Not at all. That shouldn't be. In fact, most cases, before you begin to connect and network with people, you must have carried out all the groundworks that we discussed, the goal setting, doing self-awareness, understanding effective communication and its impact. All of these things must have been settled. So it's on that terms that you now begin to connect with people and network with people so that they don't have undue influence on you. And of course, finally, you have your role models and thought leaders. And these people are not stationary in your life. In fact, some of them may not have direct relationship with you. So you need to be careful. And this is a misgiving with many people when they say, oh, I have a role model, and they want to almost kill themselves to connect or to be in the space in close rapport with your role model are not necessarily supposed to be within your close rapport. They are not like mentors, they're not like guardians, they're not like counselors or coaches to you, right? They are just meant to give you some kind of influenced inspiration. For instance, in a chosen career or in your chosen field, if you have someone who has succeeded, who have excelled, excellently excelled, you can take the person as a role model. And what that means is you have an external influence on your source of inspiration. However, and this is where you need to be very, very, very careful. However, it's not necessarily that is the entire humanity, the entire personality of that person that you can be inspired of or inspired about. A very good example is I used to have a very passionate, I'm not going to mention the name of the person because I'm sure you might want to go and do a research, but just to put the person on a very safe mode. I used to follow right from when I was in university. In fact, by the time I was leaving campus for my undergraduate studies, I'd already gotten almost all the messages in the person's library. I'm talking about messages, over 300 messages that the person have preached in podcasts, in full deliveries and all of that. I've combined, done everything and all of that because I just follow this person as a role model so much. So the area of my interest, right, in apologetics. And by the time I began to grow thinking that I should have. In fact, there was a time, one particular year, I set as a goal for myself that I must travel out to meet with this person and have a one-on-one conversation with him, kind of, because in his own speeches too, he had mentioned one time how, two of his mentors before they died, he had an opportunity to sit with them, ask kind of several valid questions which define all of life for him. And all. So I was also looking forward to something like that. Boom, all of a sudden, something happened in the person's life, and that scattered the whole migration of my thoughts, my impression, and all of that about me. In fact, some friends who knew me right from campus that I followed this person dutifully started calling him, was like, did you hear about this? Was trying to kind of like, when things happened to Job and his friends were trying to persuade him, trying to comfort him. I mean, I was really, really pulled down. And right there, I just realized again, just to validate the fact that when you put your what's it called now? When you put your motivation in all these people which are external to you, you can really get the shock of your life, And that was exactly happened with the person to the point that now that I'm talking to you, almost every achievement of that man is almost fading off. I mean, this is just about 5 years after his demise. Even his organization, global organization, everybody that worked within his close reports that was on his payroll, everything has collapsed. Everything has collapsed. I mean, terrible thing happened, right? So you need to be careful how you move close to whoever you call your role model, because by the time their weaknesses begin to overshadow their strength, because usually you'll be drawn to their strength for inspiration, right? But by the time their weaknesses begin to overshadow their weaknesses, it might pull you down. Not everybody will be able to recover. It's just like someone that pulled his real motivation in his pastor, and all of a sudden his pastor messed up or his pastor failed him or her, right? How will the person recover? How will the person be able to get his or her growth back? It's only the grace of God for such a person to be restored. And you've seen that in many cases. Some people have even lost their faith as a result. So you need to be very careful. I think I've said more about this. Then in the area of professional relationship, talking about your career development, your academic attainment, and all of that, you see mentors role here, right? Some even oppose their lecturers, their supervisors, their senior colleagues as people that will help them through the career. Or maybe in the office within the corporate sector, you have your senior colleagues, your management staff, and all of that. Again, you need to be very careful because at best, these people can only give you support, right? They can only give you support, but they shouldn't be your main motivation. Sometimes, okay, when I delve into business and I began to move close to, um, people I classify to be elites in an environment, that's when I discover that, the life of people that you see as role models from the facade can seems to be enviable, but in depth, by the time you move closer to them, you can't envy them. You can't even pray to emulate the kind of life they live. Because by the time you begin to see the revelation of their weaknesses, their frailties, and their failures, I'm sure that I mean, one of them, I used to make jest when I tell people in business management that from this person and his way of living and his businesses and all of that, what I keep learning is how not to run a business. It might sound very funny, but that's just the truth. How not to run a business, you know. So you have all this, and of course your colleagues too. When you form a support group, you form a study group, and all of that. These are places where you can, and like I said, it's not meant for competition. It's just meant for you to see how you can support and contribute to each other's progress, right? And also have a sense of accountability, because with a support group, you can establish creativity. You have people with great ideas. I remember coming in contact with that friend I talked about when we were serving together. Many things I thought I knew about my profession, I began to learn new things from him, right? That really helped me to begin to now see my own goals in a bigger dimension, not because I'm going to be competing with. In fact, I couldn't stand the chance to compete with him because it wasn't my area of deep interest to go deep down into his own strength. But it became a pointer for me to focus more on my own goals and on my own strength, which I did eventually. And then we now had to be complementing each other. So this is how it works when you have all this set up around yourself, the groups, the mentors, your sponsors, your role models, all of the people around you, creating your support groups externally, and then you have your own self-confidence. You have your own inner motivations that propels you to always wake up every day for you to move forward. Okay, moving on to other things. There are quite, we're not going to do detailed conversation around because we've spoken about them, right? When you're talking about other interpersonal skills that forms the blocks from which you are going to create your structure of your growth, effective communication, the power of collaboration, your spirit, your team spirit, your networking, the building of trust, your innovative skills, your creativity, your critical thinking, your power of negotiation, your effective leadership skill, the power of influence. All of these things are critical blocks, and they all have the part of the puzzle they play in creating the big picture for you, right? They all make sense at the end of the day. Even if navigating through each of these skills, for instance, you may not be very, very good at collaboration. Maybe you are just at the starter level, you are just at the early stage of learning how to utilize the skill, but maybe you're already climbing high in effective communication. You need to still continue to leverage on this, right? And make sure you put all to use, because the more you use a skill, the sharper and the better you get at it. The sharper it becomes and the better you get at it. So you need to continue to leverage on all these things in order for you to be able to build. And then the next thing is for you to now see how to strengthen the relationship. Okay, how to strengthen the relationship. I mentioned to you that in growing your relationship to become strong, your communication has to be effective. Okay, you have to have a complete process of communication. Otherwise, you will always have broken relationship. Just like the question or the comment Dr. Falashade mentioned at the earlier start of this session today. Imagine if you have a repetition of not feedback or no follow-up, and all. At the end of the day, there's no communication established, and that will be the end, right? That will be the end. Or someone might be entangled thinking that he or she is obligated to that relationship, whereas you don't have a relationship, because communication, effective communication is the lifeblood of every relationship. So these are some of the things that you need to understand and see how to grow in them in order for you to have a strong relationship that you are hoping that is going to yield greater fruit for you. And the quality of your conversation too. Here, I used to struggle with a lot of people a lot of times, and this is also one of the reasons why I don't relate with some people. When I see the kind of languages, the kind of orientation of your thoughts, we can't have a conversation. And once we can't have a meaningful conversation, sorry, there can't be any relationship, right? Either in business or in, because your language, your orientation, all of these are elements of your culture, which is part of your disposition. So someone should not tell me that don't mind what I'm saying, always using F word, always, I mean, using dirty languages, making cracking unreasonable jokes, all of these things, which necessarily might be part of someone's personality type. Like I told you about sanguines, because they always want to make up with words for them to be able to always have things to say. So oftentimes they will just be talking out of radar. They'll be talking out of uh, 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 sense and all of that. And in the long run, it's throw people off, right? So you need to be careful about these things and you need to watch out for it. Make sure when you are discussing with people, there are areas of mutual interest. If anybody follows me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, right? Because I see LinkedIn as a place to strengthen relationship and create connect and networks. The first thing I always respond to the person, usually if I need to send a message in accepting the person's requests to be added to my connection, what I will usually say is, I hope we are going to have meaningful conversation in areas of mutual interest. Because if that is not established, then you can just be within my network or my connection, but you won't come close to my rapport. So that is why you see someone with 10,000 people in his connection or networks, but all of them are not really connecting or they are not leveraging on such relations. So these are some of the things that you need to watch and ensure that you guard against having wrong influences as well. Like I mentioned, make sure whatever you allow to influence you, create positive vibes, positive energy. Anything that's creating negative energy, you should never bring into your close reports. Okay. And moving into the professional dimension, I will advise that if you are not on LinkedIn, make sure you create an account and have a presence on LinkedIn. Some of us are there, but we are not utilizing LinkedIn. Uh, Throughout COVID, LinkedIn was one of the powerful social media tools I use in growing myself because I had opportunity to learn for the first time in depth about AI. I was given opportunity to participate in an AI conference on metaverse. And immediately after COVID, I started learning everything I could lay my hands on. I delved into blockchain technology, which became one of my final thesis in one of the business schools I attended after COVID. So this will help you, right? But if you're there, you don't know or learn the skill on how to connect, network with people. There are so many opportunities. Almost every blessed day, there are job opportunities on LinkedIn, right? So how do you leverage on this thing? How do you expand? Some of us here, we met through LinkedIn, right? I don't want to mention it, right? So you have so many ways by which you can leverage on the opportunity that is out there in order for you to be able to get the necessary help that you need. But how you utilize it depends on yourself. And this should be in continuum. Don't just end the fact that you've taken one advantage, taking the other one, and all of that. There is one aspect of my business now, which is a very fruitful, how should I put it now, is a very fruitful outcome of my business. I got the connect, I got the network on LinkedIn, right? And that is why sometimes the way you profile yourself, the way you present yourself also matters, right? Have a way by which you celebrate your wins. Have a way by which you present and reward yourself. You never can tell who is observing. You never can tell who is seeking, who is watching. Before we came into this conversation, one of the people I've mentored in the past, we met somewhere around in Nigeria, and ever since we went into close rapport, and we've been following each other. I've been following him as well on his career growth and all of that. Last year he attended one of my trainings, and he was telling me some of his goals, and I tried to help him out. Blah blah blah. Fast forward to towards the end of last year, he lost his job because there was a transition in government, and he was trying to look for ways by which, being a lawyer, right, he felt there was a need for him to transition from practicing law and move into project management fully. Guess what? It was on LinkedIn that he got the job. I mean, I remember 2 weeks ago when he told me he's going to be interviewed for a job he has applied for in the United States, right? And it's going to be a virtual job and all of that. I'm like, wow, this is really audacious, right? I mean, just this night he called and he told me that he got the job. Having gone through 5 processes of interview, he got the job. And in the next 4 or 5 months, he's going to be relocating to US, for him to go and start in person because they told him he's going to be on probation for 5 to 6 months, and they're expecting him latest by June, he should move into the States, for him to start for his onboarding, for him to study. So I mean, a whole lot can happen because he got this offer. He was seeking towards some local opportunities, but he just knew that this wasn't meant for him because all they're offering him is not at par and doesn't align with his purpose, right? So you need to understand how this thing works so that you can leverage on all of that. Opportunities are bound and never scarce. Opportunities, even though they are limited, but they are never scarce. Limited in the sense that it will not go around the entire population. So it's only those that are prepared using all these principles in order for them to find alignment with purpose are the ones that will always seize the opportunity. Okay. I'm going to wrap up with this by reminding you on how you can overcome conflicts, how you can overcome challenges, problems, troubles, which you will always come across as much as you are relating with people. Okay. Number one is for you to remember everything we discussed about conflict resolution process. 5 of the processes that we discussed. Always remember that you need to determine what style at the different stages along the process that you need to utilize in order for you to be able to solve the problem, and don't allow the conflict or the challenge to escalate into becoming a warfare or becoming a battle kind of, So then you also have some other skills which we didn't really talk about, right? And they are just very, 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 very silent. They are very, very silent. Part of it has to do with you having this understanding on how to sketch out your roadmap. It's all embodied in the concept of planning. You have set your goals. Some of you just jump into implementation without taking time to plan. Sometimes your challenges, your problems, your conflict can be resolved with plan. When you have clear-cut plan, a roadmap on how you want to navigate when you're implementing or executing your goals. Okay. So it's very, very important. And it also breaks down the complexity and the extension by which you need to, undo all the numerous networks or connections that you have, right? In order for you to leverage on all the opportunities therein. So you need to know and learn how to plan. Very, very, very important. Planning is a skill, but very, very subtle. You hardly hear people talk about it out there. Albeit someone that plans properly and someone that doesn't plan adequately, right? The results will showcase at the end of the day whether you have actually given more time to planning and you've given more understanding to whatever it is that you're planning. And you need to always balance your network. Like I said, don't put yourself in a community where you'll be put under pressure because you are competing rather than you complementing each other. You're competing. You're not meant to compete in a community. You enter into a community or you create a network, and what you are experiencing there is all about competition, competition, competition. You need to get out quickly. It's an entanglement, it's a trap. Rather be in a place where you can complement each other, because weaknesses and strength are part and parcel of your nature, of yourself. Either it's your blind self, your revealed self, your hidden self, or your known self or known self. All of these things, 2 dimensions of your life, two aspects of your life, the weaknesses, the strength are part and parcel of you. You can't do away with it. And the same with is part and parcel of the other people within your networks. So if your approach in interacting, in relating, engaging is not complementary, rather it is competition, you are always going to run into trouble, which many a times is going to be conflict of interest that will degenerate into battle and warfare. And some people have lost their life as a result. So you need to be very careful. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and then let us ask questions and share from our personal experiences, how we have been navigating through our relationships, how maybe there are critical pain points that you think has been stunting your growth, that has been affecting your success, your pursuits. You just want to do things differently this year. Trust me. You don't want it to be status quo. You don't want it to be a repetition of past experiences, right? On how you have been doing life and be pursuing your goals, because you stand a chance for you to hit your target this year. And that's the hint, that's the purpose of these sessions. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and allow feedbacks. Thank you. So feedbacks, question, contribution. Are there areas you think this makes sense? You can apply all that we've been discussing since Monday.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
want to
evening.
come.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I have a question
Yeah,
regards
please go ahead.
managing relationship. Uh, Now talking of managing family relationship, there are some, we are different. We are kind of, we are made different. We see life differently. But there are some people that, regardless, you can just separate them from from who you are. You can separate them from yourself. Maybe like someone you grew up together with, your family member, but his way of living or her way of living is not really in line with your goal. And looking at it, there's a way his way of living jeopardize, you know, your own way of living, jeopardize your goals and everything. Nevertheless, you can't even separate yourself from him because this is someone you've been together right from childhood. And despite trying to kind of, let him realize better way of living, he has just choose his own way of living and you can't separate him. Now, in this kind of situations, how can you try to manage that type of relationship such that at the end of the day you 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 achieve your goal without sending him or her away, or without moving away from him? Because it will be hard, it will be hard actually separating yourself from him because someone more or less like your sibling. Thank you.
Okay. This is very interesting because I can see deep how this can cut, right? Especially if it's nuclear, it can cut quite very deep. But hey, please just listen to my perspective. Never say never. And one of the things you need to learn quickly is to avoid the use of can't. Can't. That in itself shows negative disposition. Okay. It shows negative disposition. Like I told you about having high EQ, there's by the time you begin to operate at high EQ, there are certain things that you will not just have within your lexicon. You don't just have within your communication language. You won't have within your belief system, your core beliefs and your value system, right? Your values. So it's not an impossible situation, right? As much as this is a real circumstance, someone you've grown up together with. In fact, it might even be your twin brother or your twin sister. Let's not just say sibling. Someone you came out from the same womb almost at the same time. That kind of biological, say mythical relationship would naturally ensue. But hey, have you heard of this whereby two twins actually killed themselves because of money? As silly as that may sound, money had killed two twin brothers. Money. Or because they have similar pursuits and one feels it's all about competition and it's going to be the survival of the fittest. So never say never. Things happen in life and you don't just want to hear or read or see or experience, God forbid, the hordes of these things. If you follow through the way we have built upon this foundation or this ground, I told you emphatically after the self-awareness that you need to understand your value system. In the pursuit of you understanding your purpose, you need to know your value system. In fact, you shouldn't move forward. You shouldn't leave your planning table when you've set your goals. You shouldn't leave your planning table until you have established what your value system and your core beliefs are going to be about. Because chances are that these people you're mentioning, your family ties, your needs, your friends, whoever is within your nuclear relationship system might have a different belief system about you. Are you now going to say you are tied to them forever? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because everyone will give account for his individuality. I mean, accountability is individualistic in nature. No two persons are going to be held accountable. And this even applies to law. When someone commits a crime, you cannot transfer Okay, the person that commit the crime is the one that is to be held responsible. Even though in some part of the world like Nigeria, the high-handedness of law enforcers, they will just go and grab the family member and all of that. That is just too absurd. But in nature and also transcendental, whoever commit the crime or whoever is an outlaw is to be held responsible and accountable for his actions. So if you look at this from this perspective, you know that you don't owe any human being from the very point in time when you begin to have a clear understanding on the need for you to manage emotions. Now, EQ, from the perspective that you need to fulfill your purpose, you need to know and pursue and fulfill your purpose. Then you know that you owe yourself and hold yourself accountable of how you get that done. If there is anybody, sometimes it might even be your parents. You see how deep this thing can be. It might be your parents who are just going to set themselves as obstacles and as roadblocks for you pursuing your purpose. EQ will enable you to know how to handle such relationship. You put them in that position where they need to be placed. Because at the end of the day, if you fail in fulfilling your purpose, one, you'll not be satisfied. And the same set of people will be the one that will make fun of you in life. So you need to be careful. Know exactly what the person's value system is. Establish the same way you are going to judge the relationship of other people, your peers, is the same thing, the same principle. If your value system, because as people are growing, you might be growing positively while the other person is growing negatively, right? The person might be influenced with negative vibes and negative influences, whereas you are here, the person is not here to learn and develop himself or herself. So by the time you stand out and your outlook is being revealed, you can't have the same outlook, and you are not obliged to be entangled in such relationships. So you have a choice to make. And the choice you need to make should be purpose driven choices, should be purpose focused choices so that you don't shortchange yourself or you don't keep wasting the energy and the resources in building yourself and growing and moving towards accomplishment of your purpose in fixing a relationship that necessarily may not be fixed, right? There are sometimes you just need to walk away from some conflicts because you don't have what it takes to be able to solve or undo the situation. So you walk away. I mean, there's no crime to it. And people may misunderstand you. Hey, you don't owe anybody apology, right? You don't owe anybody apology because it's just a matter of the end will justify the means. They may not understand you. They may see you as a controversial person. It's okay. But just know that you know exactly what you're doing and you're following through the process. And then you keep moving on. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, please, if you didn't do the assignment on value, please make sure you do it. Many of you have not submitted. So it's very important. Know your value, know the person's value, and then analyze it. Is there any alignment? Imagine this is your own faith. The other person is this faith. How can you agree on things? You always have conflict. And some might even turn into warfare, right? And you think that why are there always trouble? Why are there always problems that you are fighting and you are solving? It's because there's no alignment. The values are different. Your core beliefs are different. So there can't be any agreement. There will always be disagreements. And many a times those disagreements will generate into warfare. And people can even die in the process. And when you are succeeding and the other person is not succeeding, it's also a threat. It's also going to breed disagreement. And you are not even using your own success to help them. No. So there are certain relationships you have to just cut ties with, keep yourself at a distance, right? Any other feedbacks, question, comments, addition, subtraction? Any comments? Any feedback? Please share so that we can internalize this conversation. Okay, everybody's quiet. Yeah, Chris, you want to talk? I see you're muted.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for today's session. I don't actually have questions to ask. I just thought to let you know that we'll follow through. And it was awesome learning this part. Yesterday I couldn't join, but I took time to listen to the recording on YouTube, and I was able to catch up. I also went through uh, the survey. Yes, I just want to let you know that. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So please, like I said, the goal is you cannot remain the same. You cannot remain the same. So please don't trivialize this journey. Don't trivialize all the assessments. Make sure you put your hands, lay your hands on it, and commit to all these things, practicalize them, and see whether they make sense or not, and see how to resolve issues. And maybe in closing, if I will say that what you should take as a next step, if you are still struggling with your personal self, maybe you can want to, because sometimes if you are not achieving success, you may not really have that inner motivation, like someone that has a repetitive failure, except you have grounded yourself so well in all these principles, it might be very difficult for you to move forward. If you're a serial, if you're someone who serially keeps attempting things and you don't hit your target, like 5 years ago, all the goals you set, you didn't achieve any. 4 years ago, the same thing. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, now this is another year. So that kind of inner motivation might not be there. You might even be seeing yourself as a failure and all of that. So sometimes the next step for you might be to look at your support, okay, which you can leverage on what we have here, right? There's a formidable support. That's why I told you. I mean, we'll get to a point where we'll have a pairing and then we'll be able to see some kind of accountability on habits. But we'll get there, but just make sure you leverage on these things and see how you can reappropriate your life, redirect yourself, and get your groove back in order for you to be able to move, at a faster speed. And if the source of this might be your struggle with your relationship, you need to just put it aside and focus on how to get your groove back. Because when you keep doing the relationship the same way, you never get any good results, and it will keep creating some shattering, it keep creating some kind of hurt brokenness within yourself. And the more broken you are, the more difficult it might be for you to be able to repair. So just take a pause, right? And look at support that you can get and nurse in order for you to be able to now build back your confidence. Okay. So just to mention that. Okay. Time is first spent. I think we should stop here since no one is making comment, feedbacks, and we'll start the third week, and we'll be looking at whole factor from tomorrow, whole factor. So watch out for the communication. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Uh,
sir. Bye, everyone.
bye.
Bye.